DTCC, Chainlink, and 10 major financial institutions, including JP Morgan and Franklin Templeton, collaborated on a pilot program for institutions to bring price and rate data to blockchain, specifically NAV data. So, can you take us through how this collaboration all works and what exactly was the goal of this collaboration?
So I think this collaboration shows the trend towards fund tokenization because this data is a critical part of administering a fund on chain. And so it shows that all of these large institutions, including and the DTCC as well, are going this direction of basically putting more and more parts of a fund on chain. And that is a very important trend because the on-chain format for funds is a superior format in many ways. One way is that it conveys a lot more information to investors. Another way is that it's much more efficient, and therefore the costs of operating funds go down. But generally, what this is largely about is going down a path of fund tokenization and kind of doing that in an incremental way where you're putting different parts of the fund on chain. In this case, it was certain key pieces of data, but I think we'll go to subsequent stages that lead to kind of wide-scale, large-scale fund tokenization.
Report this month highlighting some of the benefits which you mentioned, but some include real-time, more automated data dissemination and built-in access to historical data. What else stood out to you in the report, and how is this different than how the current financial system works?
So in the current financial system, all of that data needs to be emailed across many different groups, and the data only becomes available after days or weeks or months. Here, the data can be in an automated way generated by calculating it pretty much on the spot, and so it can be made available every minute rather than every week or every month, and that's pretty significant when you think about this as valuation data that tells you the value of what you're buying or selling. And then the second thing that's pretty significant is the ability to move all of this data and all of these assets across different chains. So there was a dimension here where the data can also go across different chains through CCIP, the cross-chain interoperability protocol that we work on at Chainlink. And the ability to move this data across chains is very important because all the banks, all the asset managers are basically in the process of launching their own chains. And they're going to want to use tokens and consume data from their own chain environment. But all those different chain environments need to be reliably connected. So that's one of the big things that we also work on. In this kind of tokenization and data transmission pilot here with the DTCC, some of the biggest institutions in the world. Many of them have now production chains that they use internally, like JP Morgan has a production chain that they use, and many of them are launching production chains. So I think the trend is clearly towards generating your own blockchain as a bank or an asset manager, putting assets and client accounts and forms of payment on that blockchain, and then exchanging that form of payment or client account money or stablecoin money for different assets on various chains. So basically the world that we're actively now living in, not even going to, but living in, is that all these different institutions are going to have their own chains. They're going to connect those chains, and they're going to execute transactions across those chains, and that's going to depend on the data within those transactions, and it's going to depend on the connection between those chains making the transaction possible, which are both things that Chainlink is heavily involved in across both the public chain DeFi world, where Chainlink is the standard already and powers over 60% of DeFi, and where we are now becoming the standard in the capital markets through work like this.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And you know I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And make sure you're joining the Patrons. If you're not a part of the Patrons, make sure you're hitting the Cash App. And we have Chainlink Sergey. And this is one of the most important videos you're going to listen to all year. Remember, guys, when it comes to finances, it's boring. And that's for a reason, because they want the sheep to stay asleep. But we have Chainlink bringing all this data together. And instead of days, weeks, or months, guys, it's in seconds. And yes, you heard that correct. With all these corporations, banks, with their own blockchain, all that data still is going to be interoperable. They can bring it all together, get this data, make it smarter, and we know it's going to be used against the sheep. And tokenization is definitely here, and we know the big push is tokenized treasury, so therefore the dollar still holds some strength. And Sergey says the emerging markets is moving first. And we know that is a fact. Remember, the emerging markets is going to rise, and the United States is going to follow. And Sergey speaks about the crypto bill. Democrats and Republicans normally don't come together. And that's a fact. But we know why they come together, to push the NWO's agendas. And we see it every single time. Now we have VanEck CEO says Ethereum launch could take weeks. Remember, guys, every date is planned. We saw the Bitcoin ETF launch that day. And then we have the drums are beaten. You know, I'm not going to talk too much about it. But remember, guys, this is biblical. Armageddon has been started. They have to destroy each other in order to get to one world government, one world currency, one world religion. And the machines take over the economy while the sheep go inside the metaverse. And remember, the Cryptoteacher told you, because he knows when it comes to the NWO, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
Are you noticing what tokenized products are getting the most attention? Is it real estate or carbon credits, for example?
So there's really two groups. There's core financial products like treasuries and money market funds that are being tokenized and used essentially as a form of collateral, whether that's off-chain or on-chain, but basically it's tokenizing core financial products that are at the very foundation of the financial system. And then there are net new assets, what people often call assets at the edges. And these are assets that have not been turned into securitized financial products, but are being turned into financial products in a tokenized form. So this is tokenized real estate, tokenized carbon credits, tokenized private equity, various tokenized funds. This is where you see net new tokenization or net new financial products that don't exist in a non-tokenized form, but do exist in a tokenized form. Are very progressive because the regulatory frameworks that have been given to them by their regulators and central banks are a little bit clearer, specifically the frameworks from the HKMA in Hong Kong and the MAS in Singapore. So those banks are moving very quickly on a global scale to tokenize different asset types, everything from commodities like gold to real estate to tokenized funds to all of these things. So that's what I mentioned there. I think there is a difference in where banks are geographically in their process of tokenization, and that's heavily driven by regulatory clarity about what they're allowed to tokenize, because they're not going to be involved in tokenization if it's not something that's compliant. So I think the key places where I've been in the last few months, where I've seen the most tokenization activity, has been in Australia, in Sydney, in Hong Kong, and in Singapore. And then after that, I've seen some activity in the Middle East and the Emirates, and then Europe and the US.
And you actually tweeted about this in early May. You wrote that you spent time visiting many of the largest central banks, commercial banks, and financial market infrastructures around the world in places like you mentioned, London, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Dubai, and that it became clear to you that the transition of the global financial system into the blockchain smart contract format is well underway and inevitable.
Yeah, so my reaction to that was very positive in a few ways. I think the first thing was the bipartisanship between Republicans and Democrats on this topic, which is not as common. It hasn't been historically as common around our industry. So I think it shows a big shift in the interest level of both parties to move forward cryptocurrency regulation and create clarity about this critical part of the economy that they clearly now see as an important part of the economy, because they're discussing it, they're making a bill, they're moving it forward. So I think the bipartisanship around this bill is very, very strong and positive and unique, and shows a kind of very big directional shift in terms of how U.S. legislatures approach cryptocurrencies.
Approved applications for the listing of spot Ethereum funds. VanEck Funds was the first of those to apply, and firm founder Jan VanEck joins us now. Jan, welcome. So now that you have this approval, what's next, and what does the timeline look like from here?
Well, we're waiting for the SEC to give us comments on our prospectus. That usually will take several weeks. We don't have a specific timeline yet, so that's where we're at.
All right, so just 6 months ago, the SEC approved those spot Bitcoin funds, and that's with Bitcoin prior. This is a singular decision on just Ethereum, but what sort of impact might it have on the future of other cryptocurrencies?
I mean, I don't think we'll have more ETFs approved for many years, but what is a big change is the sort of regulatory and the legislature's sea change. I mean, really, the SEC is doing a 180 because of bipartisan political pressure that came about in the last couple of weeks. So it's a big surprise. Very interesting move by the SEC.
The Biden administration had drawn a red line, and now they're saying this doesn't violate the red line, but it puts him in a tough spot as you head into this election. What's going on? What's your read on this?
Well, it's a tragic situation, and it just, as this war goes on and on, more and more civilians are going to be caught in the crossfire. Israel has been heading into Rafah, not with the overwhelming force that I think some expected, but they're getting closer and closer to the center of Rafah. Prime Minister Netanyahu indicated this was a terrible mistake, a tragic mistake on their part. But in many respects, Israel is losing the public relations war. It's losing support around the world, including in Europe, which is more and more European countries now recognizing the Palestinian state. And the longer this goes on, the more difficult it is going to be. It's why it's so important that the war come to an end. They get the hostages out. They deal with the Hamas threat, and they start talking about the day after issues around who's going to secure Gaza, who's going to rule in that area, and hopefully make progress towards a more sustainable solution.
But it sounds like President Biden and Netanyahu aren't even speaking at this point.
Well, there's more tension now, perhaps, or there has been more tension in the relationship than in recent history. I think there's a lot of interaction going on behind the scenes. The War Cabinet has now come up with a proposal for a day-after plan that does involve both Palestinian security forces and security forces from other Arab states maintaining the security of Gaza and protecting Israel from potential Hamas attack. But there's a long way to go to get there.
Going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust, and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? If we get identity wrong, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
Bitcoin is an international asset. And also, I do believe the role of crypto is it's digitizing gold.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of a huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in in ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. We will, and if we can have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
Chinese bank ICBC has been hit by a ransomware attack, and the U.S. Treasury market, as a result of that, has been disrupted. This, according to the Financial Times. We're getting more right now with Bloomberg's Shonali Bassick. Shonali, what do we know?
Listen, we have the Financial Times now reporting that ICBC, one of China's largest banks here, was hit with a ransomware attack. And remember, they're a very significant intermediary in the Treasury market. The SIFMA has told its members that this has been part of the reason here that the system is kind of clogged up, if you will, during that auction that we saw a little bit before. The attack had prevented ICBC, according to the Financial Times, from settling Treasury trades on behalf of other market participants. A large executive at a major bank also telling the paper that such a large party on the fixed income clearing corp creates major concerns, potentially impacting the liquidity of Treasury markets.
Now, it was not just a poor auction. It was absolutely lousy, and you know, when the dealers have to step in to save a Treasury auction, that's a rare occurrence.
I hate when countries go off the dollar. I would not allow countries to go off the dollar, because when we lose that standard, that will be like losing a revolutionary war. That will be a hit to our country, just like losing a war. And we can't let that happen. And too many countries now are fighting to get off the dollar.
Cryptoteacher and the New World Order book, plus the 3 kids books. It's time to re-educate. Also, new to cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance. Do not forget book links and crypto links are in the description. The stock channel, guys. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, spread everywhere. You have your Kobo, your chip stocks, your banking, your gaming. While everybody's sitting at home, get home stocks, the Seaver, the biotech stocks. And while everybody's at home wishing they were still getting that free money, what are they doing? Drinking and smoking weed. Don't forget about those stocks, and you have a wonderful day. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids books. You know, I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Drama Team save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Drama Team save New York from COVID Stories 3. Part 3. King Joshua and Drama Team goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.